It's time for some reflections on the political comedy that we're undergoing. Seeing this drunken Boehner coming out after having said, "Oh, we will never try to have a shutdown, because it would ruin the world and everything." And now, in a pusillanimous manner, coming out and we'll ruin the world now. I think that for me, the collapse of American politics began back around 1970. I was a speechwriter for a Democratic senatorial candidate. I'm not going to name names. And I was later supplanted by the Democratic candidate, supplanted by a young man who later became a conservative radio guy. So I began. This was 1970. After the traumas we experienced, all of us who were around in the late 60s, I was a yippie at that point in Chicago, standing out in Grant Park, telling people to walk slowly as the Chicago police came over the rise toward the lake. Anyway, when I was writing these speeches for this Democratic candidate and more or less counseling him to on what he might say, and oddly enough, it was a program not really radically different than the kind of politics that Clinton eventually came up with. Unfortunately, the Clinton that's another story. But it was a let's call it a compromise, and not one that helped in a number of key ways, such as the Glass-Steagall fiasco, which was bipartisan by then. Let me go back. This candidate lost. He lost because the race became a three-way race. I urged him to make moves to turn it into a two-way race, but the moves that I recommended were rejected, and I could only conclude that the reason why things went down they did was it didn't make a hell of a lot of difference whether you won or lost, as long as you were kind of in the game. If you were a defeated candidate and had enough visibility, or you could operate all right, and this person did go on to have a very successful career. But the fact of the matter is, the beginning around 1970, and it may have been true before, beginning around 1970, it didn't make a hell of a lot of difference whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, because they were all feeding at the same trough, and the money on both sides was phenomenal, and it remains so. Politics is a matter of people wanting to rise up in the society. This is a form of social mobility for people. I was up in society when I was a little boy. If you want to talk about that, and I managed to escape it happily, merely by what might be called the attainment of consciousness about what reality is. In the 1960s, sort of was an object lesson in that. Actually, the 1950s was for me. So you make a decision. You're either going to live by your lights, or you can play that game. And I quite frankly think this is an economic choice. If you don't care, if you really don't care about making a big living, you have probably made the first step toward a kind of a freedom that you may spend the rest of your life knocking yourself because you chose it. But at the same time, the compensations are deep, personal, and rewarding. I have no idea what it must be like to be a successful politician of either party, but I do know that their collegiality is not merely a gentlemanly marriage, but a gentlemanly conspiracy, in effect, to sit light to the fact that money flows like wine at a Jesus wedding, where he's providing all this wine, extra wine, miracle. Well, in Washington, it just flows and flows and flows. And so everybody who says it's money in politics is correct. Yes, it's money in politics. But what we don't have is the motivation yet to do anything about it. We cannot even pass on a bipartisan basis things that are so transparent to the American people that 90% of the American people want them, and the Congress won't pass them. And if the Democrats had any spine, they would be lying down in a dramatic manner, and to show the deadness of this situation. Well, I can emote for hours and hours, but I do want to say that this began in the wake of the 1960s, at least, and had roots probably much deeper than that in our society and in our culture. So we have a corrupt politics, a banal politics, and what it does is it capitalizes on the vulnerable. It hides the perpetrators, and the media, by and large, supports it because it's good drama. Unless, like me, you're rather bored with it, and you would much, much rather see something like objective change taking place among people from person to person. That's what we're working at. That's why we're online. That's why we're working to do that. To pass a light from one to the other until we push this big Sisyphean stone out of the way. Have a good day.